Unless a lip reader watches this, they can't tell what you're saying. Yeah.
No sunlight, no fresh breeze, no windows. Just thousands of tons of steel slipping silently beneath the surface of the ocean. Once a U.S. nuclear submarine submerges, it can remain underwater for months at a time, completely cut off from the outside world. For the next 90 days, more than 100 sailors will live inside a sealed steel cylinder, operating one of the most advanced war machines ever built. But beyond the missiles and sonar systems, beyond the reactor and classified technology, there is another reality unfolding below deck. Men must eat, they must sleep, they must work, and they must do it all without ever seeing the sun. A modern American nuclear submarine, whether configured for attack missions or strategic deterrence, is not just a weapon. It is a self-sustaining underwater city. It produces its own oxygen, generates its own power, distills its own drinking water, and carries everything required to keep over 100 crew members alive in an environment where even a small mistake can become catastrophic. The hull is designed to withstand immense ocean pressure. The reactor provides virtually unlimited energy. The air is constantly recycled and filtered. Inside, the temperature remains steady. Outside, the ocean could be freezing or crushingly deep. The crew rarely knows the difference, but what truly defines life aboard a submarine is not the technology. It is the routine, the structure, the relentless rhythm of confined living. Time inside a submarine does not follow sunrise or sunset. There are no windows to signal morning. Instead, the crew operates on a rotating watch schedule. 6 hours on duty, 6 hours off. 6 hours for sleep, maintenance, meals, and whatever brief personal time remains. The vessel never stops moving, and someone is always awake. Before deployment, the submarine is loaded with everything the crew will need for months. Food storage becomes a logistical puzzle. Every spare inch of space is used. Dry goods are packed beneath floor panels. Cans and boxes are secured along passageways. Freezers are filled to capacity. Even torpedo room spaces may temporarily store supplies before launch readiness is finalized. Once the submarine departs, there are no grocery runs, no resupply missions in the open ocean. What is on board is what the crew lives on. Feeding over 100 sailors for 90 days requires extraordinary planning. Roughly 400 meals are prepared each day. Over the course of a full deployment, that amounts to more than 36,000 individual meals produced in a galley no larger than a small apartment kitchen. Navy culinary specialists operate tightly packed ovens, grills, steam kettles, and refrigeration units secured for sudden shifts in movement. Fresh produce is prioritized early in deployment, but within weeks, the menu transitions to frozen, canned, and preserved options. Morale often rises and falls with the quality of meals. A well-timed steak night or freshly baked dessert can lift spirits in a way few other comforts can when surrounded by steel bulkheads. Water is not stored in massive tanks the way many assume. Instead, the submarine distills seawater using the heat generated by its nuclear reactor. This process provides drinking water, cooking water, and shower water. Oxygen is produced through electrolysis, separating hydrogen from seawater and releasing breathable air into the vessel's atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is continuously scrubbed from circulation. The air may feel artificial, but it is safe. Everything is calculated, monitored, and adjusted around the clock. Yet for all its engineering brilliance, life aboard a submarine remains intensely human. There is no open sky, no horizon. The only sense of the outside world comes through sonar displays and navigational data. Weeks can pass without a single glimpse of daylight. Sailors begin to measure time not in days, but in watch rotations and meal cycles. The hum of machinery becomes background noise. The scent of metal becomes normal. Privacy becomes rare. Below the waterline, the submarine is both shield and cage. It protects its crew from the crushing ocean while confining them within narrow passageways and low ceilings. Every movement requires awareness. Every system requires maintenance. Every person carries responsibility. And as the hatch seals and the vessel descends, the crew understands one simple truth. For the next 90 days, this steel tube is home. Sleeping space inside a submarine is engineered with ruthless efficiency. Most enlisted sailors share compact berthing areas stacked with narrow bunks known as racks. These racks are arranged 3 high, each barely wider than a standard twin mattress and just tall enough to turn over. A thin mattress, a reading light, a small ventilation duct, and a privacy curtain make up the entirety of personal territory. Beneath the rack or in a nearby locker, sailors store every item they own for the duration of deployment. There is no extra closet, no spare drawer. Space is the most valuable commodity on the vessel. On longer patrols, a practice known as hot racking may be used depending on crew size and mission requirements. This means multiple sailors share the same bunk on rotating schedules. When one sailor leaves for watch, another takes his place. The rack rarely stays empty. It is not luxurious, but it is functional. After exhausting shifts monitoring sonar arrays, maintaining reactor systems, or standing watch in control, sleep becomes less about comfort and more about recovery. The submarine operates on an 18-hour day, a rhythm that slowly reshapes the body's internal clock. 6 hours on watch, 6 hours off watch, 6 hours for maintenance, training, meals, and sleep. Over time, the crew adapts to this cycle, but fatigue remains a constant factor. There are no weekends, no true days off. Even during quieter stretches of patrol, drills and equipment checks continue. Fire drills, flooding simulations, reactor casualty scenarios are narrow, often forcing sailors to turn sideways to pass each other. Ladders connect vertical levels. Pipes, valves, and wiring line the ceilings. The reactor compartment remains restricted and heavily controlled, operated by specially trained nuclear technicians who monitor temperature, pressure, and power output around the clock. That reactor provides the silent advantage of unlimited underwater endurance, allowing the submarine to remain submerged far longer than diesel-powered vessels ever could. Silence is both weapon and survival tool. Submarines rely on stealth, which means noise discipline is strict. Equipment is mounted on vibration-dampening systems. Conversations are kept controlled. Even footsteps can matter in certain operational conditions. Sonar operators sit in darkened rooms listening to the ocean's acoustic landscape, identifying distant ships or potential threats through sound alone. In these moments, the submarine becomes less of a vehicle and more of a listening post, drifting invisibly beneath global shipping lanes. After 60 or 70 days underwater, the psychological weight begins to intensify. There is no news beyond filtered communications, no sense of weather, no changing scenery. Sailors mark time by countdown boards and meal rotations. Some exercise in small onboard fitness areas to maintain both physical and mental stability. Others read, watch stored movies, or study qualification manuals to advance their careers. Camaraderie becomes essential. Shared hardship builds quiet bonds that often last long after deployment ends. Despite the confinement, morale is deliberately maintained. Commanding officers schedule special meals, movie nights, or small celebrations when possible. Promotions may be held in the cramped mess area. Birthdays are acknowledged. These moments break monotony and remind the crew they are more than operators of machinery. They are individuals serving a shared mission. As weeks turn into months, one thought remains constant among the crew. The submarine is built for endurance, but so are they. Every system is monitored. Every procedure is rehearsed. Every sailor understands that below the ocean's surface, precision is survival. And when the order finally comes to surface after 90 days beneath the waves, the first rush of fresh air and natural light feels almost unreal, a reminder of the world that continued above while they remained hidden below. Beyond the sleeping quarters and galley lies the true operational core of the submarine, its weapons and control spaces. Forward compartments house torpedoes carefully secured in launch tubes, each maintained with meticulous precision. On certain submarines, vertical launch systems carry cruise missiles capable of striking targets hundreds of miles inland. Every weapon on board represents both strategic power and immense responsibility. Sailors assigned to these compartments train constantly, rehearsing loading procedures, safety checks, and simulated launches so frequently that muscle memory replaces hesitation. The control room acts as the submarine's brain, dimly lit and lined with digital displays. It is here that officers of the deck manage navigation, depth control, and mission execution. Large control panels replace the traditional ship's wheel. Instead of looking through windows, operators rely on sonar returns, periscope feeds when at shallow depth, and encrypted communications. When the submarine ascends to periscope depth, a photonic mast rises above the surface for only moments at a time. Images are captured quickly, and the mast retracts. Exposure is minimized. Stealth is preserved. Every movement underwater must be deliberate. Changing depth involves adjusting ballast tanks, carefully managing buoyancy, so the vessel neither rises too quickly nor sinks unexpectedly. At operational depth, the ocean exerts crushing pressure against the hull. The crew rarely thinks about it, but the steel surrounding them is the only barrier between life and catastrophe. Routine hull inspections and system diagnostics are performed throughout deployment to ensure integrity remains uncompromised. Emergency drills form a constant background to daily life. Fire is one of the greatest threats aboard any vessel, but inside a sealed submarine, it becomes even more dangerous. The crew trains to isolate compartments, deploy firefighting equipment, and restore breathable air in minutes. Flooding drills simulate pipe ruptures or hull breaches. Reactor casualty drills rehearse responses to unlikely but catastrophic scenarios. Each sailor has assigned emergency roles. During drills, alarms echo through the passageways, and sailors move with urgency but controlled precision. These repetitions build confidence that if the unthinkable happens, panic will not take over. Life underwater also demands strict discipline in communication. Submarines often operate in radio silence, receiving limited bursts of encrypted messages at scheduled intervals. Outgoing communication is even more restricted. Families at home may not hear from their loved ones for weeks. Sailors understand this separation before deployment begins, but the emotional weight increases as days accumulate. Letters are written but not sent. Messages are stored until transmission windows open. Physically, the environment shapes the body. Without sunlight, sailors rely on artificial lighting and vitamin supplements to maintain balance. The air remains filtered but dry, and many experience minor sinus irritation. Exercise equipment, though limited, is heavily used. Stationary bikes, compact weight systems, and body weight routines help maintain muscle tone and reduce stress. Command leadership encourages physical activity not only for health, but also for morale. As the patrol nears its final weeks, anticipation builds quietly. Conversations begin to shift toward home. Sailors count remaining watch rotations instead of elapsed ones. Yet operational focus never fades. The submarine remains ready at all times. A single mission tasking can alter routine instantly. Depth changes, course adjustments, and classified objectives can interrupt monotony without warning. When the order to surface finally arrives, it is executed methodically. Ballast tanks adjust. The vessel ascends steadily. Periscope checks confirm safe clearance. And then, after months beneath the ocean, the hatch opens. Fresh air floods downward through the sail. For many sailors, that first breath feels sharper than any memory. Sunlight touches faces that have not seen it in 90 days. The ocean horizon appears vast after weeks confined by steel walls. But what makes a submarine deployment remarkable is not just the technology or endurance. It is the human element. More than 100 individuals lived, worked, and operated complex systems in one of the most isolated environments imaginable. They adapted to confined space, rotating schedules, and total separation from the outside world. They trusted each other completely. Although the nuclear reactor itself is heavily shielded and monitored, it remains the heart of the vessel. Nuclear-trained sailors oversee reactor output, steam generation, and propulsion systems with constant vigilance. Temperatures, pressure levels, and coolant flow are logged continuously. Even minor fluctuations trigger investigation. The reactor produces enormous energy, but that energy must be controlled with absolute precision. The propulsion system converts steam into mechanical force that spins the submarine's propulsor quietly through the water. Unlike surface ships, speed changes underwater must remain subtle. Rapid acceleration can generate acoustic signatures detectable by adversaries. Everything is calculated for silence. The torpedo room doubles as both weapons, storage, and living space. During long patrols, extra racks are sometimes set up among secured torpedoes to maximize available sleeping areas. Imagine falling asleep only feet away from advanced underwater weapons designed for combat. For the sailors assigned there, it becomes routine. Torpedo men inspect guidance systems, maintain loading mechanisms, and run diagnostics that ensure readiness at all times. The smell of lubricants and metal blends with recycled air. Space is tight, but organization is flawless. Every sailor aboard is working toward qualifications. Submarine crews are highly specialized, and earning one's dolphins, the silver insignia worn by qualified submariners, requires mastering knowledge of every major system on board. Junior sailors study piping diagrams, electrical routes, ballast systems, weapons controls, and emergency procedures. Senior crew members conduct oral examinations that test understanding under pressure. Until fully qualified, a sailor carries a qualification card that must be signed off system by system. Even during deployment, training never stops. Medical capability on board is limited but carefully structured. A submarine typically carries an independent duty corpsman trained to handle emergencies ranging from fractures to infections. Medical equipment is compact but capable. In serious cases, evacuation may require surfacing and coordinating with external support, but such operations are rare and carefully planned. Preventative health becomes critical. Cleanliness standards are enforced rigorously to avoid illness spreading in confined quarters. The mental strain of prolonged submergence cannot be underestimated. Without direct communication from loved ones, sailors rely on stored emails delivered in periodic data bursts. There is no social media scrolling, no real-time news. Information is filtered and mission relevant. Some crew members journal privately, others immerse themselves in technical manuals or novels stored digitally on board. Personal entertainment systems are limited but essential for decompressing after watch. Lighting inside the submarine attempts to simulate day-night cycles in certain compartments to help regulate circadian rhythm, but the artificial environment never fully replaces natural sunlight. Over time, sailors report that their sense of date fades. They measure progress by patrol milestones rather than calendar days. The outside world becomes abstract. The submarine's interior becomes the entire universe. Even meals evolve as supplies diminish. Early in deployment, fresh bread and produce are common. Later weeks rely more heavily on frozen goods and preserved items. Creativity from culinary specialists keeps menus varied despite constraints. Morale events, such as Steel Beach picnics conducted when surfaced briefly or special holiday meals, become highlights of the patrol. Security protocols remain uncompromising. Access to certain compartments is restricted. Sensitive equipment is monitored closely. Watch standers verify identities before granting entry to critical areas. The submarine operates not only as a military asset, but as a classified environment where information control is paramount. When land finally appears in the distance, emotions remain controlled. Professionalism stays intact until docking procedures complete. Only then does relief settle across the crew. Families gather at the pier. The hatch opens fully. Sailors step out into daylight that feels almost overwhelming. For a moment, the world seems louder, brighter, and wider than memory allowed. But beneath the celebration lies quiet pride. 90 days underwater, zero margin for error. Every meal prepared, every watch stood, every drill executed contributed to a mission few will ever witness. Submarine life is not defined by glamour. It is defined by precision, endurance, and trust in steel and in one another.